Start. I call the April 18th Development Review Board meeting to order. First, we have approval of minutes that were left on the table. This is minutes from the meeting of March 21st. Any comments or corrections to these minutes?
We accept them.
Second.
Looking for a motion to approve the minutes of March 21st, 2011.
Second.
We have a proposer and a seconder. All those in favour? Say aye. Aye. Those against? None. So those minutes are approved. The meeting has been properly warned, Brian?
Yes, it has.
Thank you very much. Looking for an affirmation from interested parties. That's these proceedings tonight are on the record, and we ask any interested persons, which would be applicants or people that wish to speak against or for an application, to take an oath that states that the evidence that they'll give is the truth and nothing but the truth. So anyone tonight who will be presenting an application or wishes to speak on an application, if you could stand and take the following oath. Thank you. I hereby affirm that the evidence I give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth, under the pains and penalties of perjury. I do. Thank you very much. Looking for disclosure of ex parte communications or any conflicts of interest on the board. I shall be recusing myself on application 2011-016, which is Jonathan Williams' application. I formerly rented space from him, so I feel that it's appropriate that I step down. And Gina, you'll chair that one when it comes up. Thank you. So I'd like to move forward to the public hearings, and there's been a slight change to the running order of the agenda to that which was originally published, I think, on the website and in the newspapers. So we'll call application 2011-015, which is the Wyndham Housing Trust. If you could come forward and please tell us about your project.
Well, I'll start off quickly. My name is Isaac Wagner from the Wyndham Housing Trust. Eric Morse Land Surveying, Guilford, our surveyor for the project. This is a project that's underway. It has a full zoning permit already, and in the process of construction, basically in the process of the project, we determined that the boundary line wasn't clear, so we've come to an agreement with the abutter to adjust that boundary line, and that's what we're here to talk with you about. Well, this is a survey showing So this is a property of actually Spring, Elliott, Valgar, limited partnership.
We have a camera behind you. If you could just slightly orientate yourself. Thank you.
There's an apartment house here. This is on Valgar Street. South Main Street is on the west. On the east is basically Valgar Street on the south ends at the top of the steep bank that then goes down to Morningside Cemetery. It used to be Morningside Cemetery. The slope is owned by Innisfree Farms Leasing Company, and the boundary between the two properties is being proposed to be adjusted so that an existing driveway and some other features, dumpster, fencing, yard maintenance, will be on property of They've been using this property in this manner since 1993. And there was some confusion. They thought they did have an easement to do that. And when it was determined who the abutting property owner was, they came to an arrangement that they would adjust the property line because it had minimal effect on the Industry Farms property. There's an inset over here that shows all of the Industry Farm property, which is 8.5 acres. And the adjusted area up in the upper left, that small strip of land which is less than 1/10 of an acre. It's 0.08 acres. So that's basically it. It's pretty straightforward. One boundary line just being adjusted to almost like a bump out to include an area that has been used by the department.
Thank you very much. Brian, this small change in no way affects the conformance of these plots in the district?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, thank you. And to all intents and purposes, Wyndham Housing Trust or this property has been utilising this land anyway, with the road on it and other dumpsters and things like that.
At least since 1993, there's a possibility. It was quite a bit prior to that.
Presuming that it was land associated with that property.
Yes.
Right.
So to some extent, this is a sort of technical correction of the
Yes.
tax maps, land maps, and so on and so forth.
In additionally, it's kind of geologically appropriate, I guess is the word, because you're really at the top of a steep bank that just drops right off there. You can't really see that because we don't have topo lines on this map, but there's no specific use that the other landowner could really have for it. So they proposed this to us. So.
Okay. Any other member of the board have any questions for the applicant?
No.
Okay. These type of changes are normally conditioned with time limits to file with the town, the corrected documents, and the decision will require that you file with the town clerk within 90 days, which is fairly standard and fairly normal. Right? I'm looking for a motion to approve application 2011. Oh, 1 second, sorry. We've cut the public out of this. Any member of the public like to make a comment on this application? Okay, no members of the public wishing to contribute. Looking for a motion to approve application number 2011-015 in the matter of Wyndham Housing Trust, adjustment of a boundary line.
So moved.
Moved, second.
Second.
Thank you very much. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? No, that's 50601.
Did you appoint? I'm an alternate. She's an alternate. I'm a regular.
She's regular. James was an alternate, and he went.
Right, he said he didn't play this.
And
So
And I'm
just
an
appoint
alternate.
Timberlake for this one?
Timberley, you were appointed for this one.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Got it.
601. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nothing like doing things backwards, right? Okay. We will appoint Joe for this application. So, call application. We're on to. Let me just make sure we're on to. 2011-005, James Jarvis for Kenton Wilkinson Renaissance Jewellery. Please come up, tell us about your application.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Caitlin Wilkinson, owner of Renaissance Fine Jewelry in downtown Brattleboro on 141 Main Street. This is Jim Jarvis, my general contractor for the building we purchased, began at building at 151 Main Street. We're here this evening to discuss change of use and also to discuss signage. We are interested in having the first floor continue to be commercial space, but the upper floors be multi-use with commercial and residential for my second home. And we are also interested in having signage a little beyond the zoning laws and regulations. We're looking, and I gave you a picture of what it was proposed to use and what it would look like. Due to the height of the building and the gorgeous facade of the building, which we didn't want to encroach by putting signage at eye level, we felt that it was important to change the type of signage. And the type of signage we're proposing to put up is classic, inappropriate with the kind of federal Georgian revival style of the facade that was put in the 1930s. As a previous member of the Historic Society in my town for many, many years, and vice president, I'm very passionate about the appropriate restoration of these buildings. And the way the building is situated, I felt like a classic gold leaf raised signage with black smalts would look appropriate and very elegant. But what we found was when you walk by the building, everything's so high up, and we didn't want to cover the beautiful facade that's down below, the sandstone facade. And it's very difficult because people are walking by at such a low level for them to actually see what the building is. And signage is very important not only to commerce, but important for people to find your building and safety as they're driving by. So we took all these things into consideration. And the signage will include, we will repaint the numbers so people can clearly see what's already on the building, which is that it's 151, 153 Main Street. Because as many of you may know, the building used to be different. It had a completely different facade that was removed. Oh, okay, thank you. And it was replaced in 1930s. And we have done extensive research as to how the building originally looked when it was the Savings Bank of Brattleboro, when they did this facade change. And so, anyways, to make a long story short, the signage that we have shown in the picture, we feel will give a very elegant look to the building without covering the beautiful sandstone facade, and will provide good directional signage for our clients without frustrating them, and also provide good signage for people driving by, which is really important to our business and the commerce and also safety of people driving by. If you've ever driven by a building 15 times to try to figure out if it's the right one, you know how dangerous that can be.
So we have two aspects to your application.
Yes,
One is
that's correct.
change of use for the second and third floors.
That's correct.
And
Part
then,
of the
and then a consideration of signage.
That's correct.
We'll take one at a time.
Absolutely.
What's on the upper floors at the moment? It's commercial?
Commercially, yeah, it's been used always as a bank, and in recent years from the Trust Company of Vermont has been using the first and third floor, and Senator Gant's been using the second floor. It's always been used commercially.
And you're proposing that the second and third floors will be turned into apartments, or an apartment?
It will be one apartment. The second floor will be actually used. I'll have an upstairs office, library, and places to meet with clients, but essentially it's going to be kind of a split-use building.
Mixed-use building, okay.
Yeah, mixed use. There'll be one apartment in my store.
So the first floor of the store remains 100% commercial. There's no residential use on the first floor.
That's correct.
The second floor remains
Part use.
commercial.
Commercial residential, yeah. It's part use, and the reason it's part use is because How we're setting up the second floor is when you come up the staircase, there'll be an open space for meeting with clients, but also kind of a pseudo-living space for me and my 2 children and husband family. So we're going to use it for 2 uses, actually, and meeting with clients. I'm an extremely social person for anyone that knows me, and I'm hoping to be able to meet privately with clients up there because we do a lot of special use jewelry for people and also estates where we need extensive privacy but a large area to work. And we also have a need due to the type of people selling to us to have extensive privacy and security because of the type of jewelry we sell.
The application, this is just a technicality, the application before us states approved to change the use of the 2nd and 3rd floor from office to 2 dwelling units.
Yeah, I don't know where that came from, but we,
That's a mistake?
Yeah.
So we're just looking at the 2nd and 3rd floors of the office being turned into a dwelling unit.
that's correct. It's very important for our business to keep the building single use for our security.
Single owner.
Yeah,
So
single
you're
use,
like
single
owner.
owner,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, it's not as if we can rent the upstairs.
Is there independent, will there be independent access to the upstairs, or is it all passed through the,
It's independent.
It
It's got
is-
its own staircase.
it's got its own staircase?
That's right.
There is an elevator that goes through the building,
Okay.
And a spiral staircase that goes
and
through
a
the
spiral
building.
staircase that goes up through.
But they'll be all secured at every floor, so.
Does anybody have any questions on the board about the change of use for the upper floors?
Is that sprinkled?
It is being
It's going to
sprinkled.
be, yes.
Not
Southern
that it's
Vermont's-
not that it's a timely question or anything, but
Well, I can tell you, I'm very glad we are doing it.
Right.
Yes, no, we are having it sprinkled, and Southern Vermont Sprinklers doing it, and we've already got the plans and the, have they gotten the permit yet? They're with the state, they're working on
They
it.
should have the permit.
Before we open, yes, it's being
They
done.
applied for the permit.
All 4
probably
floors will be
6
sprinkled.
weeks ago.
and is your outside ground space, other than what's in front and is technically the sidewalk, is it that little space that there's almost like a little planted bed there, a
Yes.
staircase that comes off, and then a sliding wooden door where there's a trash dumpster behind it? Is that your space, or is that the river garden?
The only space that's mine, is the garden space.
The garden. And
but-
that sidewalk that goes perpendicular to the alley, and then there's a drain
I
right
own
there.
half the alley,
Right, okay.
and then I own that, yeah, that back part, that back like cement pad, and the area to the dumpster,
That's
that's
all-
all owned by Simi Berman.
Oh, that's Berman's.
Berman's owns
Really?
behind it, yeah.
So their little finger reaches over into there, and then you have the river
Exactly.
garden,
My
right?
landlord, yeah,
So the river garden's on one side,
that's right,
and Berman's on the other two.
that's right,
Right, okay.
yeah.
So is that your exit out, since you're gonna be dwelling there, your exit out of the building besides through the front door to Main Street, you have another exit, I'm taking it?
There's no back exit on the building currently, but the state inspector and the fire inspector have spent
Numerous
extraordinary
hours.
amount of time in my building, analyzing it, looking at it. We worked closely with them. And the way it's situated, there are very large windows. And due to the height of the building and the fact there's ladder trucks in Brattleboro, and it will be sprinkled, and we're on surveillance 24 hours a day live, remotely, people are watching us, and the fact we have such an extensive security system, and we have CO2
Smokes and CO2s that are audible. They're actually going to be through the security system.
extensively throughout the entire building. The way we set it up, and the precautions we've taken, including removing extra ceilings, which is a big thing to talk about today. We actually took the expense of removing all the ceilings, including rooms where there was 3 ceilings. We removed all the ceilings and all the things that were considered dangerous for fire running up walls and in between the floors because it was going to be my residence. I felt very strongly about doing that, and I took that additional expense at quite an expense.
So just out of curiosity, with that, do you get access? In other words, that if you don't own that alley, it's Berman's, you must get right away to
Well, I own half
get
of
back
it.
in there or something.
Yeah,
I
on
own
top of
half
it.
of it.
Oh, okay.
And we share it. And
Okay,
yes,
right.
I could drive back there, and I could even probably park if I wanted to in that garden area.
Huh.
But
Right,
I'll
right.
probably just
Right.
maintain it as
I was
is.
just
And-
curious if it couldn't be such that Berman's could obstruct your
No,
access
he
back there or
can't.
something.
And we have a wonderful relationship.
Yeah, right,
So
right,
that helps as well.
I shoveled that alley for like 20 years.
Did you really?
Yeah,
Did?
yeah. Yeah, for Leo when he was alive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Brian, do we have any comments from either Public Works or the Fire Department on this? So are you, the point of that explanation is, are you putting in an additional exit for a fire perspective, or the fire chief has decided that
They've both decided, Brian Johnson and the fire,
because he,
yeah,
right,
Costa,
that
they
it's-
didn't
that it's-
need to,
that you didn't need to?
yes.
Yeah,
And they've been
there's a
working with
full
us.
height fire escape in the back there, isn't there?
There is not.
There
Well,
used to
not-
be, but
I
there's
thought
not.
there was,
Yeah,
yeah.
there's not. But the way it's situated between all the way the spiral is towards the back of the building, which goes all 4 floors. Of course, the elevator wouldn't necessarily be used in a fire, but between everything and extensive time spent on the subject, it was decided with the combination of my incredible comprehensive security, the way everything's being hardwired. The fire inspector and the state inspector both had requirements, which we are meeting.
Are you gonna have any outside lighting to light up the signs or anything?
We
like
are
that?
going to have LED lighting. We're working with Energy Efficiency Vermont on everything. We have a job manager for that. And the whole building is being done. We've already worked with Energy Efficiency Vermont in our current store, and we're continuing to work with them. So we will be using exterior lighting, and the lighting will be on the signage, on timer systems, independently set up with our electrician. Wiring's independent set up so it can be shut off or on based on sensors and time. And so there will be lighting, down lighting, the main sign, and I think up lighting. They're going to uplight, but it's LEDs and it's very discreet. I guess is the word I'd like to
Yeah,
use.
there's-
Can we, before we talk about lighting the signs, can we discuss the signs? And then
Oh,
we'll
of
just,
course.
once we,
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And I was thinking of it just in terms of, I
Yeah.
wasn't sure if it's gonna be like on all night, like not necessarily in terms of lighting the signs, but just the general, if it was gonna increase the lighting on the building that's there now. It's
There's
not
actually
really,
no lighting on the building right
Okay.
now. There's wires there, but there's no exterior lighting on it.
Yeah, they've been severed off.
Yeah, they've been cut off at some point.
is that spiral staircase the only way to get all the way to the 3rd floor?
Currently it is, in the elevator. Yeah. Yep. Though there is proposed another staircase to go in from the second to the third floor. It's very complicated the way the layout of the building is. We could not figure out where the original staircase was due to the extensive remodeling of this building. And even when we tore all the ceilings off, we couldn't figure it out. So it's really hard to say where it originally was. And so what we proposed was putting yet another spiral from the 2nd to the 3rd floor in another location, if necessary, and that's been proposed. And we've been, of course, working
With Brian Johnson
on
on
about
that
that.
also.
Yeah,
He's given me all the specs on
yeah.
what needs to be in there.
you may have to apply to Department of Public Works for a reallocation of wastewater, because we're going from a commercial usage to a mixed uses or mixed residential use.
Yes, we'll be using quite a bit less.
And it will probably reduce.
Yeah,
So
it'll be reduced
you
essentially.
need to get that
Okay.
Public Works to reassess the water allocation and
The reduction of the sewer use, you mean?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Or increase? It could be either way. I mean,
I
I'm assuming...
think it'll be reduced.
It should be
but
reducing,
there was-
but
if you
you
could
need
see
to
some of
just
these pictures of
discuss it
how
with
many
them.
people they had working in these spaces, which are extensive, it's definitely extensive reduction.
Any other questions on the board about the use of the upper floors as residential or mixed use, change of use to mixed use?
Is there any on-site parking?
There is not. I rent spaces in the garage and in the Manly parking lot. But I get to walk to work.
Walk downstairs to work.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll take the elevator to work.
So parking isn't as big of an issue. We pay for our staff parking.
Let's move on to the sign part of it now. So this picture here, with this packet, is how you propose,
That's
or
right.
how you're suggesting that you do your signs.
That's correct.
And the building at the moment has shutters on it too, doesn't it? Does
It does, but they're going to be
They're all
removed.
going to be gone? Yeah.
They're going to be removed. They're not appropriate for the building, and they weren't original.
So, just looking at this, a quick analysis, you're looking for 1, 2, 3, 4 wall signs and a hanging sign,
That's correct.
or you're suggesting that?
I'm suggesting.
Yeah.
One can help.
This gives us a chance to get into our wonderful sign ordinances. The amount of square footage for a sign in the urban centre and actually in other districts of town is dependent upon the frontage of the building.
That's right.
Do we know what the frontage of the building is? The number of feet?
About 25 feet across.
25 feet.
Uh-huh.
Brian, is it 25 feet? 26 feet? That's a...
Something like that.
The allowance comes to 54.8 square feet.
Sorry?
I can imagine it's easily.
It comes to 50 point...
58.4 square, or 54.6 square feet.
54 point what?
8.
Oh, sorry. So for a second, discounting the number of signs, the ordinance permits 54.8 square feet of signage.
Yes.
And you have, what do we have? We have a sign going, a wall sign at the top. We did with the big one first. That's proposed 16 by 30
16 feet by 30 inches.
by
That's
30
correct.
inches. So that's 40 square feet. At least 14.8 square feet. Wonderful. And you're proposing a hanging, swinging,
That's correct.
bracketed sign that comes off the wall. That's what
About 6
size?
square feet, she
Is that
says.
6 square feet or 8? You're right, it's allowed up
Yes,
to 8
it's
square feet.
Two,
but-
2 by 3 feet.
So this plan here is 2 foot by 3 foot.
Should probably have it in front of me.
So she has to put it 6
We're up to 46.
It
They're not
is
even asking
6
for
square
it.
feet, 2 by 3 feet,
Yeah.
yeah.
What the little kind of crests that you have going under the windows, which would be signs.
There's actually plywood there already that's covering up what,
Yeah, it says.
we don't know what's on.
Well, it says, I think it's, the sandstone was engraved underneath. It was with signage that was covered up and with a blue plywood, which is currently there when you look at the building,
You can actually see it in the lower.
behind the cars. It's behind the cars.
That's actually
Yeah.
plywood.
And we just wanted to do something simple there. We can't take it off because, of course, it has a whole different business name engraved extensively underneath. So we thought we would just paint it and put a decorative emblem.
The previous business name was, what'd you say, engraved?
Stone.
Yeah, it's
Cut in
cut into the
stone,
stone,
right?
yeah.
Stone.
The
Is
Brattleboro
the stone
saving.
structural, is it, or just architectural detail?
It's part of the facade. I wouldn't imagine removing it or replacing it would be, A, financially
Right.
much fun, and secondly, it really.
What size
So
of
you're
that?
just gonna cover it, those
It-
two things right there, those small things are just coverings for
Yeah, they're
that?
just
They-
coverings.
they're current-
More aesthetically pleasing coverings than what's there now?
Right now, it's just a blue
Yeah.
plywood board, and we
Right.
just are trying to jazz
How-
it up a little bit.
What are the size
What
of
will
them?
this be?
What size are they, do you know?
I think
Oh, That's one thing I don't have.
Well, it's about what that blue,
They're not very
Plywood is
big. They're
like,
probably
it's
a
that blue
foot
piece
high.
right by
it's
the
like about
nose of
8
the
foot and a
Yeah.
half by 2 feet or something like
They
that.
might be a foot high by maybe 3 feet.
Yeah, something like that.
They're not very big.
But they are, interesting enough, when you walk by, one of the things you see, because of the way the building is so tall, when you walk by, when your head, if you look at the doors with the glass in it, cut in, your head is coming by about that level. And so it's helpful to have those match and look appropriate with the rest of the building, and we chose an elegant crest.
Is
'Cause
it,
it's-
You think they're 1 by 3, you say?
They're
So it's
about, they
3
might
square
be
feet?
Yeah, they might be even
1
smaller
by...
than that. but-
Okay.
How is it, I'm curious, how is it those things that seem to be, yeah, I see where they are. I'm curious, how is it they cross the threshold from architectural detail into sign and are counted against the sign square footage?
Well, it's-
does it say
that's-
something on that drawing there?
This one says...
the initials?
It just says, we just have right now, the sign, the gentleman is doing our signs out of Putney, Vermont, he just put our
There's initials
initials.
in it, but that's just gonna be a
RFJ.
drawing or an architectural detail?
No, it's
Yeah,
just going to be painted on, yeah.
Right, but it's not gonna be
It's not gonna be a sign.
sign in the sense of a sign, so how is it
Well,
that that counts against the quantity of signs or the square footage?
Well, is it a sign or not? If it has your name on it, or your initials on it, or your crest on it, it's a sign. If it's just painted, it's not a sign.
So if it's a flower, it's not a sign? If it was engraved as a flower,
I agree with him.
it'd be not a sign?
I don't think it's a sign.
I don't either.
Well, let's look at it another way. Suppose it was the wall of a supermarket and they wrote their name across it in enormous letters.
But if you
Well,
look,
but it's not
if you
that.
look at it,
It's not the wall of sign, it's like, it's just a prettier piece of plywood than the one that's on there, really.
Exactly.
That's
yeah,
all it is.
but it's got, on this, if you count just the crest with the RFJ as the sign, you're still
Right.
talking only 2 square feet
If even.
one for each one.
Right, if even, right.
The
But
rest
it's,
of it's,
then, according to Tim, it becomes the quantity, but that's,
Well, we'll maybe. We'll get there.
that's
trying to
if you
determine-
consider those a sign, right? Or is that the determination?
I think
That
if it was
those two
if it was an engraved
things are
if it was
signs?
an
and
engraved sign in the face of the building that said, you know, this building built in 1862 and the architect was this, that's counted as a sign.
Right, but that's not what it is. You're
No,
just
no,
looking
I
at-
understand that.
Oh,
But
okay.
what we're saying is
Yeah.
we're covering that up because it was, or it is being covered up, because that refers to a Vermont bank or some other company. And if we cover it up with a board and paint over it, I guess it's not a sign. If we cover it up with the board and we put something on there that says grand sale,
But then it would be a mural, which isn't allowed either. You gotta get a permit for that too.
where's, what was it, 4,500?
Well, he's
Remind
got
me.
signs not defined right there, and I'm just trying to figure out where it is, what makes something become a sign from architectural detail.
He said it said it's the business name,
But you're not gonna have that say anything, are you?
That's right.
but it has their initials.
It's got the initials.
Well, that's just because the person that drew that sign rendering for them wrote his initials in there, right? Isn't that what you said?
No, that's.
Those
their-
are our
that's
store
their
Oh, that's
initials.
your
You put our
initials?
initials in
Oh,
there,
okay.
yeah.
I didn't notice that, I'm sorry.
If we put a Moravian star there, which is our logo, would that help?
I don't know.
Is that,
We just
Is
wanted,
that the
we just
critical
wanted to
mass
be
that-
I don't know.
decorative.
We're not. We're.
I mean,
if
the
that.
paint, I almost think that the paint kind of, if you're going for this very classical look, something painted may sort of dumb down this very refined design you guys already have. You know what I mean? It kind of seems like if
We're at
you wanted
52.
something to stand out, that architectural
But you can have
detail,
54
real
Yeah,
detail,
except for we haven't told
rather
you
than the paint would be more,
which one of these
Um,
drawings represents that?
I don't know.
Well, these signs are really quite gorgeous, and the flat signs there, I mean, we could, of course, make it a raised
This is the
crest.
least desirable.
That's the other possibility.
So that would
Everything
become a
else is,
detail.
everything else
What's
is
probably the
raised.
most visible
Everything
from
else we're doing is
people
carved,
driving down the
raised
street
with
level
signage.
But then it would be a detail
Coming down
of
the
the
hill,
race.
it's
It would probably
It would be very beautiful, but I'm already well over $10,000. So if you guys could be understanding of the fact that I would love to have a carved raised detail there, which I truly would, I will consider
Okay,
that
signs
if there's
not
some state
exceeding 2
funding
square feet or smaller.
for my beautiful signage.
Where's the urban district?
Historical preservation grants.
I am actually currently working on some grants, but none of them are going to be available until well after I need to move into the new building, unfortunately.
Here we go, urban centre.
Except I would love
Can you
that.
just to skip on to the one,
Yeah.
2, 3, the next
So
one?
there's an exception maybe for them, Brian found, that exceptions to the permit requirement is a decorative feature of a building, except integral signs, which I wouldn't say this is an integral sign.
What do you have over the doorway here?
I just added, because of the projecting sign, I was concerned if we put the projecting sign in the center of the building, below the pediment, that it would cover up the detailing. Now, of course, you have to understand that that center of the pediment is missing currently, but we hope to restore it. And so my concern was if I put the sign in the center of the building, which many people have encouraged me to do, that it would cover some of that and obstruct it a little bit aesthetically.
You're talking about the hanging, swinging sign?
Yes. And so that has been in consideration to do that and just remove the smaller sign, the Renaissance Fine Jewelry, which is a very small sign. I'm covering, if you can see the area that steps down, the 3 pieces that step down below.
Architecturally, it'd be
Yeah,
nice to keep those
architecturally.
and not cover them.
Exactly. I didn't want to recover the circles with the little
Yeah.
columns. So I made this tiny sign that would sit above the door so that people who are walking by, because part of our issue is still the fact that people walking by, it's kind of centers the center of the building and says this is the entrance, right? If I put the projecting sign there, which is the other option, which would decrease the signage I'm applying for, I felt like it might obstruct the aesthetics of the center of the building. And I kind of like things symmetrical. And so I proposed paying for an additional sign there that would be exactly the same as my upper sign, just very, very simple. I think it was 9 inches high.
8 inches.
8 inches high, very small. Again, gold leaf border, black background of this, kind of like the Brooks House building. It has a sparkly black background. And then the Reyes gold leaf lettering across.
How long is it about?
Did you write those down?
It goes across as you see it, pretty close. It goes across there because when you stand up front, you look at the columns and you look at that, it
Is that
made
like
sense.
80 inches?
Made sense. It's on the permit, the exact measurements. It is
We did write that.
8.5 inches by 8.5 feet.
We did write it.
In the door, yeah.
And that's proposed, so it's like
Where's
potential.
that?
square feet?
Where's that on here?
5.5.
Is that on the back side here? No.
I don't think they gave the measurement, they just told us the measurement.
The measurements are on the permit, on the application, on Form B.
Form B.
Uh-huh.
at the bottom.
From an architectural standpoint, that's the least, or the most offensive, or the least desirable, because it's breaking up that nice line that runs through your top of your doorway.
You think it's the most offensive?
Yeah.
Really?
Personally.
Well,
Hi.
I'm gonna get into our personal opinion.
No, but I mean, we're
Okay.
dealing with
Square feet.
sign square feet that are in excess of what the book says we can. In fact,
So would you rather I move with the projecting sign to the
Well, no,
center?
we-
Everything.
Because I can do that, and that would be within my permit use.
But are you
Yeah, we're
counting
signing
those,
those here,
Uh-huh.
starting from the first one,
Yes.
41
are
square
you
foot one.
counting those as the
That's the
full
very,
dimension?
that's the top one above the
Or
second
just
floor.
as this part?
Hold on, I gotta move back to that
we
page.
count the whole thing,
Rotating over with that?
the border.
The biggest one is,
57, and-
the 16 by 30 is the one that goes across.
Yep, so square feet.
The second one is the one above the door. The third one are the plaques that have our,
Figure that out, yes.
have a,
5 square
the
feet.
crest that the sign gentleman did. The fourth one is our original sign, which we'd like to reuse on the side of the building. And then the fifth one is the projecting sign.
And that's kind of nice.
Your hanging sign that you have here,
Yes.
on the picture, is that going to be hanging out over the sidewalk?
Yes.
So that both sides are going to be visible as you're walking down the street?
Yes, it's a carved sign on both sides. That's correct, yep.
What height will it be hung at?
About how you see it. It's actually quite a ways up, and I think we have those measurements here to 11 feet 6 inches
Is that
up.
allowed to infringe on the easement?
11 feet 6 inches. It's quite high.
Yeah, the statute-
We actually
so-
use several other businesses that were near us as our kind of basis. So because as people are walking along, it kind of makes sense.
So from a waiver standpoint, board, we have approximately 57 square feet of signs, and we have 55, so it's a couple of feet over. And the quantity, the count, which in theory is limited to 1 plus 1, one swinging, one wall sign, has got 3 extra little wall signs. So the issue before us really is whether or not we permit those extra wall signs. Am I
What's going to
correct,
be
Brian?
on the glass windows
No,
and the doors?
excuse me, Tim.
Sorry.
Nothing is going to be on the 2 windows that you see on the side, the windows that you see divided light.
In the door?
In the door, we probably will have our name and maybe the number. I'm not sure. We haven't really decided on that. Very little, because they're not very big. There's not, right now it says Vermont Trust Company or something like that on it. It's, you know, you don't want to clutter up with a lot of signage on your glass. It doesn't look well. You want to kind of keep that to a minimum. And we,
Go ahead.
so-
Yeah, please do. Spoon.
I would like us to consider this application in terms of total square feet, rather than deciding which sign should go or which sign should not go, or whether a sign should be shrunk or enlarged or changed. That would be the applicant's choice, their decisions about how to conform to the amount of square feet that would be allowable.
Right. I agree.
But there is a part of the zoning ordinance that states 1 wall sign and 1 projecting sign.
Okay.
So, and here we have 5 signs.
Right.
I think we can.
So we can look at square feet, certainly, and take a view on square feet and how that applies, and we can look at the quantity and take a view on that and see how that applies.
I think
so-
the 2 crests can be accepted by that one that Brian had up there before as an architectural detail.
I agree.
Yes,
I agree with that.
I don't think there's.
I think especially if they didn't put their initials and put the star or some other, artistic rendering or whatever. And
Where's that in the ordinance
What was
quickly?
that, Brian?
the
You had
page that he
highlighted
had
it.
before there, that he highlighted in blue.
Right there.
What's that? 4502?
Yeah. Section B.
And if that
Brian,
were-
were you B?
V.
V.
And if that were the case, then square footage issue would be
Decorative,
removed.
decorative architectural features of a building except integral signs.
I don't know, as soon as you let that, as soon as something like that happens, and what's the difference between that and painting the side of a building, which isn't allowed either? I mean, it's the same thing.
Within the size of that. So what
Well,
is
they-
it?
they
What is
don't-
what is an integral sign?
Or something else.
Those
yeah,
lines
but
carved into
still-
the building, the signs behind those panels are integral signs.
Decorative or architectural features of a building except integral sign. So we're saying this, that we could consider those two panels to be
Decorative.
decorative.
Decorative architectural panels.
A decorative architectural
Decorative
feature.
or architect. So we could just say decorative. Or yeah.
I mean,
And then, but they would still need a variance because they've installed
To get
3
the
signs.
extra.
Yeah.
one sign over the door, 8 inches by 8 feet, 5 square feet. And yet there's total would still be, if you counted those 2 plaques as architectural details and as signs, then their square footage would be
Under.
well under.
Is that right? I've lost my piece of paper now.
Yeah. It's,
Well, if they're
the
2
two
square feet over,
or
those
12
are
feet,
bigger than
so-
2 square feet instead of 3 square feet each, so that would put them 4 square feet under approximately.
I had them at 6 square feet each.
He said 1 foot by 3 foot. So if you change it to that, that's the number even.
So can we just go back over the total square footage again for me?
The
So we got
1.5, I think
we
it
got
was
40 in the main sign. Joe,
I'm sorry.
can you help me here? We got
Yeah,
40
so
in, 40 in the main
41.6.
sign,
Yeah.
and then there's a wall sign that's sorry, a projecting sign that's 6. That's 46. And then there's
The one at the top
the
was
one above the door, which is
5, 3,
8.5 inches by 8.5 feet.
7.22
so
square feet, is
five.
it?
8.5 by 8.5.
8.5
about
feet
6,
by
7.
half a foot. Or,
So that's
yeah.
54, right?
Almost 6. Yeah, I don't
Well,
think it's 7.2.
7.22, but let's call it, if you want to call it 6, that's 40 plus 6 plus 6 is 52, which is under the 54. So if the other two are treated as architectural detail, then they don't even come into the equation.
That's how I would view it.
The 2 little plaques underneath, it's 4 foot by 17 inches on the application.
That's what I measured.
So if we consider the 2 panels underneath the windows as architectural details and they're not offensive, sorry, wrong word, they're not signs, they're architectural in some nature, then you conform in terms of overall square footage.
It's decorative or.
Decorative, thank
yeah.
you.
not just-
The issue then is just the quantity, that with the fact that we have 2 instead of 1. I how the board feels about that.
It is actually 6.02.
Any other questions from the board? Any other thoughts or comments, Spoon?
Lighting?
Just review me for a moment on what we have in mind at this point.
We have this sign is
Okay,
the
the
wall
wall
sign.
sign,
Okay.
as is,
As is. This is a sign above the door
right,
at 7.22.
that's right.
These 2 signs here, which are the left and right
Yeah.
low windows, we're considering as architectural and decorative. And
These 3, the one above the door and the
No.
2 on either.
The one above the door is a
being
sign.
counted.
Oh, that's a
sign.
sign, okay.
the 2 panels underneath the windows are
Where-
decorative architectural detail.
all
And then
right,
there's a hanging sign or a swinging sign,
okay.
projecting sign
So,
at 6 square feet.
if I'm reading that right, that's 48, 60, 66, about 67 square feet.
No, do you the math again? 41.
41,
48,
7, 48.
Skip the 12.
I'll skip the 12,
Yeah.
okay. And then skip the other, so that's 52. Okay, that's good.
So you're leaving the sign that says Vermont Savings Bank in place?
I think that's gone, isn't it?
That's decorative or
That's not in
architectural
there
feature.
anymore. That was removed.
That's from the
Maybe
Maybe the
historical
50s,
picture.
sorry you guys, the photo wasn't, it was a good
Okay.
photo to use, but it's not current. That's
Have you
not
got
there
the picture
anymore.
of the building?
That's just sandstone now.
Just in terms of the variance, you feel that each sign is necessary for your business?
I do. We've spent a lot of time thinking about this, and I've worked for over 2 years on purchasing the building, and I've, of course, had it since December. And upon coming from different directions, standing, walking, trying to look at it, it's a very, because of the height of the building, I mean, each floor, even when you get inside, you have to step up, and the ceilings are 13 plus feet on every floor. I mean, it's a huge building as far as height, that when you're walking by, you're coming from different right or left, you're driving by, and you're coming from different places, it helps to have the signs where they're being located, and also the type of sign we're using, which are easily visible. Part of the reason we chose this sign is not just because it's classic, but because you can see it. And that's really important, not just for our business and commerce, but again, for directing people safely to the business.
And in terms of lighting?
Yeah, all the, there'll be lighting coming down. There'll be a little piece that kind of comes down where there'll be LED lighting onto the sign, so directly onto the sign here.
From above or below?
From above, yeah.
Okay.
And there will be also a sign, a single light, there'll be a light on the extending sign. And there'll be also little LEDs along there. So the signage will be visible at night. And in the winter, that's very important because it gets dark early. And you want people to be able to safely find your building.
So essentially, they'll be off when you're closed.
They'll be on photo sensors and timers, so she can turn them on and off whenever she wants.
Yeah, but the type of lighting it is not obtrusive. It's not like glowing lights, or it's not going to certainly keep anyone from sleeping, since I'm going to be the biggest person who will be concerned about that, because I can't even have the glow from my DVR on at night. I can't handle any of that. So
We generally have standard wording with regard to lighting, which I shall summarise in terms of downcast and shielded. So we don't want light shining off the property.
Right.
So anything that's there should be downcast and shining onto the property.
Sure, which is
which
fine.
is what you've
That's
just
right.
described.
That's
Any other comments on the board?
Are there any concerns about ice on the hanging sign over the sidewalk? Is that ever an issue?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Well, we measured
I
all
don't
the ones that were down the
11 feet
street,
tall.
and that's exactly
Well, I
what
mean,
they were.
Yeah.
The
boats houses
pediments
are-
come out farther from the building than the sign or any ice that could come off it. So if there was ice on it, which it would hit the facade. I mean, Jim, my contractor, climbed out on here, put up our banner that we're moving there, walked over it, came over to the other side, tied on the other side. It comes out quite a ways. These columns come out, was it 22 inches?
Well, this
The
cap
other
piece comes out about 22 inches.
The
columns
cap
come out
piece
about
comes out,
13 and a
yeah.
half to 14.
So,
on the building.
but I'll send Jim
Any
up to
members?
break them.
Sorry. Any members of the public wish to comment on this application?
When I was talking about ice, I was talking about the one hanging over the sidewalk,
Yeah.
right? Okay, just clear.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Fortunately, the way our roof is built, we will have no snow falling off. Fortunately.
Tim, may I ask you, zoning administrator, could you do we have the definition of the word sign in our zoning?
Should we require as part of the permit that?
Would you like me to read it to you?
initials don't appear?
Any
What number is it, so he can...
Page 614 in my book, anyway. Any structured device or representation designed or used to identify, advertise, will call attention to or direct a person to any business, association, profession, commodity, product, institution, service, entertainment, person, place, thing, or activity of any kind whatsoever, and intended to be visible from a public road.
That seems to describe perfectly those two small signs that we're calling architectural.
If it was their crest and not their initials, like their, you have a symbol you said that you,
The Moravian star, yeah.
then people don't necessarily know that that's theirs. I mean, the point is not to advertise your business. The point is just to put something there to cover up what's underneath, right?
Right, exactly.
That's
And to have it
aesthetically pleasing.
better than a board painted, a plywood board painted. It'll be professionally done, it'll be very elegant. It's a combination of black, gold, and red.
I'm sure it would look fine. I just want to try and understand, because this will come up all over town, and how do we distinguish between one and another?
What is a Moravian star?
It's a star with multiple points. Are you familiar with it? It's kind of three-dimensional feel to it.
Like
So-
4 points, 8 points? Random
Actually,
points?
there's many
Sorry.
different types,
Okay.
and they can come up to like 48 points. It's amazing. The one we have
Okay.
is currently on our logo at our store, and it's currently on our window, and it has 8 points. 4 of the points being larger than the other 4 points. So you've got the 4 large points and then the 4 little points.
Well, you know, if you sold sporting goods, and you had in that shop, and you had 2 panels, and you just put the Nike slash, would that be a sign?
Yes.
Because it's a recognizable look.
It's a
I mean,
logo.
really, the real difference is the fact that paint is not an architectural detail. It's mural. That's really what it is. And by definition, it's actually a sign. That doesn't make any difference.
So if I did a raised sign, would it make a difference?
Raised?
Yeah, a carved raised sign, like everything else I'm doing is carved, raised, gold leaf
Oh.
signage.
I mean, the reason that I bring that up is because if it's paint, it's much more likely to chip, somebody runs into it. If it's raised, then it typically has some longevity to it. And this building of prominence in downtown, historic building, has a bunch of features on it that are, that are made to last. And something that's painted doesn't have that sense of,
Permanence.
yeah. I mean, that's what makes an architectural detail. It has a sense of permanence. So, I mean, that's,
But that's a decorative detail too. Is it decorative or architectural? That's what I get. I mean,
Yeah, but
that's
there's an integral sign here too. It says memorial sign or tablet or name of building and date of erection was cut into blah, 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 or historic designation plaque. It could be anything material. So what if they decided to just do something and put the date of the building on there? I mean, not their logo, but just the date of the building on those panels.
Okay, that would be acceptable.
So if I carve into the stone, is that what you're saying, to remove what's on the stone?
No, I mean, just have a raised whatever on that thing, it says, 1836 or something on it.
Oh, like our street number, maybe?
Well, David,
Or the
Or
date
date
of
of
the building,
building.
the age of the building, it's historical then.
But the street number is not considered a sign, that's a necessary evil.
Where is your street number right now? Above the door?
It's 151, 153. Because it used to be two spaces. And originally, I believe, when it was built, it had 2 entrances. It originally had quite a different facade. And of course, we're just going to use 151 in marketing it because 151, if it's just complicated. We're just going to mainly use 151.
Would you be adverse to putting 151 on those signs? Or 153? 153 on the other. That's advertising for a well-known brand of rum, though.
Right.
Sorry, 151.
Yes, we would consider that. Or we would also consider doing potentially a carved raised, more architecturally
If
interesting.
they did one with the number on it, and one with the year of the manufacture of the building on it.
That might be confusing.
Yeah.
People are
For
still
some-
wondering
for
if
some,
there's even a jewelry
I
store
mean,
in
we don't need to
Brattleboro.
decide
There-
right now what they
it's
put
been
on it.
years.
We can
As
just
long-
say,
as long as
you
it
can't
doesn't
advertise your
conform to a
business on
sign.
it. Right.
As long as
Right.
it doesn't match
Right.
the sign
Can I just-
description.
just
Really, that's all you
bring
can.
this
That's
to-
all
Whatever
all
the
you
hell
can
else
say.
is really irrelevant.
I think
Okay,
I
they
think
can
I'd
pick
like
the
to try and
detail.
just focus this for 1 second. Sorry. We have 54.8 square feet. I think we can allow the applicant to use up to 54.8 square feet, and we will, should you vote, we will propose that there is a waiver to the restriction of quantities of wall signs and allow there to be 2 wall signs and 2 architectural details, or 2 signs that are not advertising the business but are more informational basis. Does that sound?
Don't you, I wouldn't use the word sign, you're using the word sign over there. I mean, I think if you
Right, we're
So
just,
call
we're
them signs,
approving
we're not
3
saying,
signs.
right, we're
Yes.
approving 3 signs,
Yeah.
and then they're gonna build something with plywood and paint and stars and
And then they'll be able
whatever,
to-
and cover those other spaces
Right.
there.
Right, so we're not giving them a variance as to extra square footage, we're just saying 3 signs, the 3 main
Right,
signs.
as pictured,
Which-
There's-
one over the door,
I know,
and
that's
the
beautiful.
hanging sign, and the big one up
Yeah,
there.
Gorgeous. It's so lovely.
And just not
and
count
then just
those.
what you do with those panels, it just
Not
has
It
to
just
not
can't
be a
rise to
sign
the
under the
level of sign.
definition.
Okay.
Which means it can't have our name or initials on it, is that what you're saying?
It shouldn't be identified with your business. I don't know, how would you say?
What they do afterward, is that just under Brian's approval? You know what I mean, like, what they do, and then if he finds it's in violation, I mean, it's kind of out of our
Okay,
hands, isn't it, at that
that's
point?
good enough.
Yeah.
It is a historical building. It would be nice to put the date of the
Okay.
Yeah, it's, we've considered a number of different things for the plaque, putting a plaque on the building, but I don't think, do I need a permit for a plaque on the building?
I
No.
think so.
I
And
know- I-
historical plaque?
A plaque that talks about the building and what it's been, or,
I don't think so.
Brian said no.
I know that in,
Maybe it
well,
would.
It's not
I've done,
representing your design to identify that specific building. So, I mean, the building, yes, but not the business in it.
Right.
it's more of a marker to tell people who are walking through town and want to know the history of these buildings,
I think that would be
right?
nice.
I mean, I don't know. Having been involved with this before, and we encouraged signage throughout the town that I'm from, it was nice to have those. So people, when they did the tour of the downtown and through the community, they knew what they were looking at, right?
Is the downtown an historical district? Yes. So why don't you speak to the Historical
Yeah, I have.
Society, a regulation, and see what, I'm
Okay.
sure there's a...
Yeah, though the building is not on the historic register.
Oh, it's not?
It is
We're
not.
good? Any other comments on the board?
Given us the public.
Okay, let me, sorry?
Any public?
I've already asked the public. Anyone else from the public like to comment at this point? Thank you very much. So, we are going to do the following. I'm looking for a motion to approve application number 2001-005 of Renaissance Fine Jewellery. The first
Who's
part...
voting on this one?
Sorry?
Who's voting on this one?
Joe is voting on this one. The conditions that we've either changed or added, and that's to this is the use of the second and third stories as a residence, or what do we call it? Multi-use. That you apply to Public Works for a reallocation of wastewater permits, that, change in wastewater allocation, that your signs be limited to 54.8 square feet or whatever the definition is, and that we will permit one additional wall sign. The two lower architectural pieces that have been under discussion will lead to your discretion to be decorative and
Look to Brennan's guidance.
yeah, we'll look to the zoning administrator's guidance. So I'm looking for that motion, please.
So moved.
Second? Second by Helen. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? 601. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you very
Sorry
much.
we took so long.
No, thank you for your time, we appreciate it.
Last was the lighting should be downcast.
Yeah, you said that.
Lighting shall be
Downcast?
downcast and shielded. Your
All-
sign lights.
Okay, all of them downcast. Okay, good enough. Thank you.
Okay. Next. We've done Wyndham. Gina, application 2011-016.
What about the 1-3?
Have I missed one? Oh, sorry, 1-3. 2011-1-3. Call application 2011-1-3, Laura Goldblatt and Kelly Plaque. Please request for dimensional waiver. Please come forward and tell us about your project. Yeah, they were sent out by email. So, Timberley, we're appointing you to hear this application.
I can hook up directly to the projector.
We have pictures, and you can just tell us anyway.
Can I ask, is this the one that was in the paper?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
My name is Caleb Clark. This is Laura.
Hi, I'm Laura Goldblatt.
Hi.
We are building a guest house where our two-car garage is now on 19 Pine Street. It's in the same footprint as the two-car garage. And we are applying to extend this little roof on the side, which does not have a foundation.
So, let me just, you haven't built this yet. This is in a planning or
Yes,
application stage.
But you have a garage.
There's a
standing
garage
now.
there.
there's a garage there.
Okay.
Yes, there is.
And you have a permit to replace the garage with an apartment.
Yep, and that's an overlay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And I have more pictures to give you a sense of the overlay. The little roof, like we want to come, that roof to go to our property. The foundation will not be under this little roof.
Okay. And the change that we're looking at right now is to put that little shelter on the side.
Right, and it's on the side of our garage here, and we own the land a little to the side of the garage, and the roof would go over to the property line.
Okay.
And I can go in further and further.
How far is your garage right now? How far is your garage from the property line?
We've been talking to our neighbors, and we haven't measured from the post,
Okay.
but we think it's 1 to 3 feet. So we would measure from the steel post on the west side, where it says there's one, according to our deed, over and establish.
What is the setback in the district, Brian? Side yard setback.
For an accessory room, 5 feet.
So it's normally 10, but accessory structure 5. Okay.
And our
So-
current garage is not 5 or 10 feet from the property line. It's closer.
So the
The currently
gar-
standing
the current-
building that we're going to build in the footprint of
The current
does
garage
not
is not conforming.
conform.
Okay, and
Yeah.
the building that you have a permit for, the replacement that you have a permit for was built or approved to be built in the footprint and therefore will not conform either.
Correct.
Okay?
We're not approving the apartment, we're just approving the
The
roof
ex-
line extension?
The extension.
The shed roof line without any foundation under it.
What, this is the only place you can put that shed? Let me ask a question. Could you put the shed on the other side, or behind, or in front?
Yes.
It's physically possible to. In what we've considered about the, we've taken into consideration between ourselves and discussions with the town and discussions with our architect, mostly 2 things. One is the maintaining of the property in and of itself is in the backyard that would be usable by the people in the large house, and keeping privacy for the residents of that house and privacy for the residents of the of what will be the guest house or rental unit that we're building. So part of our thinking in putting the shed on the far side next to the abutting properties is that the residents of that small building have place away from our backyard to store their belongings, and so in that way to both have privacy for them and us in doing that.
Is it
But to
gonna,
answer my question, it could go on the back or the side.
Yes.
Physically,
Okay.
yes.
Physically, yes.
We've thought about that.
and be
Yeah.
in conformance with the setback, or would it still be?
They're right on the line
Yeah.
in the back too, aren't they? You're right tight on the line in the
Oh, yeah.
back too, aren't you?
Yep.
Yeah.
What,
So right, I was just going to say it couldn't go on the back, but it could go on the front or the west side.
What is the building to the right of that building on the next property? That's a house? So their privacy will be infringed upon when you put the lean-to.
So, that's the garage.
I believe this house is already on that.
Yeah, those
So,
things
that
aren't
was it.
accurate,
Yeah.
though. Those maps on one of them, Jim.
What's this?
Placements.
That's the
They
back of someone's
superimpose a
barn. It's
map
very
over
tight
an
back
aerial
there.
photograph.
Actually, if you look at that,
Is it gonna be fully enclosed or open?
no.
No, it'll be open.
This
Would
is,
Sorry, our
lattice work? It
pictures
looks
aren't
like
coming
it's
up.
not a
this is a
lattice
barn
work.
Yeah,
for,
okay.
for these people, and this,
That's a barn, not a house.
right. And
Right.
This is
That's a house right there.
apartment,
Okay.
2-unit, and it's their little lawn, and they've been using right up to our foundation, which is fine, and they're happy not to, they just know, what's going on, and this is a garage.
Okay.
Um,
I just wanted to make sure that that building, that's a barn, was not a house.
I see in a sense that we would put the end of that shed roof line where a fence, we could put a fence.
So simplistically, if you had a fence there, and then you put a piece of tin from the fence to the wall, that would achieve what you're asking.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay. Now, something that I'll say mildly concerns me, but you say you don't know where the boundary line is, so you don't know the size of this structure. It could be 1 feet, in which case it would be almost non-functional, or it could be 3 feet, and it might be just about useful. Do
Can we-
you not know? Or
The
you,
shed?
Yeah, the lean-to part, the add-on part.
Can we talk for a second before we answer that? Because I think we would just want to talk about how to say it. I think we know that we're only going to be building within the footprint of the garage, but we would adjust the placement of the
Oh, yeah.
of the building and the shed structure in accordance to where the line is.
The house, the current garage is 20 by 20, maybe 20 and a half by 20 and a half. The new place is only 16 wide. So we can move that shed roof to hit right to our property line and keep it 5 feet or whatever it is, and move the other part within the footprint. 'Cause
So,
we're going
okay,
from 16 to 20.
let's go back then. The zoning permit that you got earlier in December to build this structure minus the lean-to would conform to, go ahead. It would conform to the accessory structure setback, i.e. 5 feet from the boundary. No? You said it was 20, it's now 16, so you're moving it 4 feet. If you took it all off of one side.
We don't have a design that doesn't include the shed.
It's always had a shed, I think. It's always had that roof because we knew we had that space to play with in our 20-foot.
Okay, now I'm confused. What are you applying
Well-
for here? If it's already been approved, why are
Because
you here?
we want the shed roof to go outside of of where the concrete pad is now.
Outside of the existing footprint
Correct.
that you
Right.
approved to build on.
Where
Right.
we would put a fence anyway, we could. The only difference is we're attaching from the top fence over to the house, and that's why you need to.
Well,
My
that's
question,
not a roof,
Between
it's a
here.
different-
Exactly.
my question is, if your footprint on the new building is 16 feet,
Right.
and the other blueprint is 20.5 feet, if you kept it off to the left side, then you would have 4 foot and still stay in your not
Yes.
increase your non-conformance and have a 4 foot 5
That's
space
true.
there,
Mhm.
and still be in your not breaking your non-conforming, or increasing your non-conformity.
That's true, and if we were doing that, we wouldn't have to apply for any exception, but we'd rather have it over a little because we have more space. and
Brian,
more
can I ask you a
lawn.
question?
But,
The application 2010-190, when this was approved, this accessory structure or apartment was approved, that had the side lean-to on it?
Yeah. Yeah, that portion came to this,
oh, on the second one?
The applications they put in, that I approved administratively, was actually,
Was dimensionally conforming?
yes.
We put in 2. I think the second one had the shed, but it's within the 20 feet.
Right, which is why that portion comes to you folks in that amended application.
So just clarify for me one more time. So the board has already approved, and you have an approval for this structure with a shed on the side, as long as the shed did not increase the non-conformity of your existing garage. Am I correct in that understanding? And now you're here before us because you'd like to put that out to the boundary line and gain a shed that's, instead of 4 feet, maybe 5 feet.
No, the shed won't change in dimension.
No, the
We'll
shed
just-
won't change in
The house will
dimensions.
move, look. The
The whole thing will move over.
The shed won't have to stay within the dimensions of the old pad. The
What you
shed-
really want to do is just keep the 4 feet on the other side of the garage in your yard, which is more usable, rather than...
We want more usable space.
Yeah.
Right, okay. I understand.
To the left of the
Yeah.
structure.
Okay.
So
Yeah, our
the-
yard's to the left of the garage, and if the shed can go, where that shed roof ends can go up to our property line, we'll have a couple more feet of lawn.
What is the, just run the dimensions for me one more time. What do you think the dimension is from the boundary, the property line to the existing garage wall?
3 feet?
3?
It's very hard back there. If you look, this is our garage. There's a fence there running this way, a fence there running this way. There's our fence, which goes out farther. We're thinking it's not even here, we're going to go here. There's a lump of rocks there. And if you look at the map, it's angled. I don't know if that's from the satellite, but the lines back there are angled off See how it's slanted at times? So, yeah, I don't know if it's correct. You can see that that's starting to be red. It's tilted. So we don't know what's going on back there. We wouldn't want to go too far.
Would you,
That's a wider
would you
view.
consider
Very
the, okay, would you consider the, this is all being demolished though, so you have the opportunity to site something perfectly and
Yes.
get it right.
Yep. And there's a post I think we could measure exactly from where we have the feet, right?
Yeah, we have in our deed, the dimensions are stated, and there is one in the northwest corner of our property. There is one of the metal pins that are spoken about in the deed. So, regardless, we'd want to measure according to the deed from that pin to find out where exactly our property line is.
And the purpose of the shed is?
Storage of outdoor belongings like bicycles, winter gear like skis, things that we're expecting that a renter would have here in Vermont.
At the same time, letting the neighbor not see them and be able to use right up to that fence.
Would it be enclosed and locked or open? Would be
Open.
It would be open.
Only from the front.
Yeah.
Have you spoken to your neighbor about your proposal to go to the boundary line or the property line?
No.
No.
It was our understanding that the neighbors would be notified of this hearing and thereby of the proposal. In good faith, we've been talking to them whenever we see them or can find them, but we haven't actually gotten to talk to everyone about it.
Yeah, they should be notified as a butters.
Brian, have you had any communications from the neighbours?
Well,
Yeah, right, and he has two of them up, so. I don't think Jonathan lives down that way. Right, right.
So you building a new house on the existing slab?
We have to tear the slab out.
We have to
It's
tear-
cracked.
So, could you give me one more time the dimensions of the lean-to part? 5 feet by whatever, is that it? Not to exceed 5 feet? So that the accessory structure will be conforming.
Yeah, I think it's 4 because we want to stay in the 20. On the plans, I don't know if we have that. I think it's 4 because that would make it 20 feet. The house is 16. But it's a flexible, very flexible part of the house. It's just a little roof.
I think the point of having the 5-foot setback and that would apply to both your property and your neighbors, as well as, of course, all other residential properties, is to allow for a sufficient space so that people aren't on top of each other. So if your neighbor planted a tree near his or her property line, it would not grow up touching the eave of your shed. So, you know, there's a little space there to allow for air, drainage, whatever it is, and you're asking to put that eave right up to the property line, and there's a potential there for conflict in the future.
Yeah, we thought we'd ask, and we wondered if we put a fence and a roof, and the roof didn't touch the fence. Is that wrong? I mean, I think that is, right?
a roof, I mean, a fence is one very
Right.
particular specific feature. A roof is another one, and the setback, roofs are within setbacks.
Oh, okay, so that doesn't matter.
Under normal circumstances, we would require that the furthest point out of your roof, whether it be your roof or your shed roof, would not be more than 5 feet from in this district, 5 feet from your boundary line.
Right, we're aware of
So we
that.
have a variance in a way by
So,
grandfathering, anyway.
well, you're demolishing the structure
Right.
in its entirety, you're removing the slab, and
But
as
it's still going to
such-
be within the footprint, so
So as such, but you've also stated that this building, the new building, without the side shed on it, would be in conformance and be 5 feet from your boundary line, correct?
No, well, we don't
well,
know if it's exactly 5 feet. We don't know.
Greater than 5
yeah.
feet.
Like we said, no one in our entire convergence of properties is sure of where exactly the property line is.
It's a few feet from the
So
garage.
we can say that we could build within the footprint and that would be adhering to that piece of, what we recognize are the town's standards. But like we said, there isn't a marker, and our neighbor said, well, it's probably, your garage is probably 1 to 3 feet from the property. Like, no one is really sure.
The problem with that for you, though, is this, that at some point in time, you may not have the same neighbours. Somebody will come in and conduct a survey and establish exactly where the boundary line is. And then, potentially, you have issues. And we at this point, are not going to give you a permit to build something where, certainly we're not going to say you can go over the boundary line. There's no chance of that. That's why when we have 5 foot setbacks on accessory structures, there's that little leeway in there, where a few inches are something that nobody hopefully will go to war over. It would be my advice to you that you absolutely need to determine where that boundary line is, so that the next, if the current neighbour is happy with what you build or your structure, that the next one might ask you to come in and tear it down if you're not sure where it is. And in the case of a lean-to, it may not be
So if we
too
build,
traumatic an exercise to tear it down or move it, but in the case of the structure,
if we stay within the current permit, build right on only where the footprint is, then we're fine because we know the property line is not on our garage.
That's
It
what the old
sounds like
permit
that.
says, right? Yeah.
what does this permit say, Brian?
Yeah, we've
Shall
already
stay within the current footprint as defined, or shall be 5 feet?
No, it was based on, the information we had at the time was that it would be 5 feet from the property line. And then subsequent information they got, it seems like you guys are questioning whether it is full 5 feet.
Yeah, well, we thought that
Or
fence,
we have-
our metal fence looks like it's about 5 feet out, but as we talked to everybody, they said, well, we don't know who put that fence in and how they measured it. But we can measure it. We should have probably, we think we know where their post is on the other side, but
So to be clear, you can't tell if you're 5 feet off something or not, because you don't quite know where you're measuring from.
that's correct.
It might be
So-
a plat filed with the town, so you might be able to,
There might be a what filed with the town?
there might be a plat for your subdivision filed with the town.
Well, isn't there, on the maps, online maps that they show, where they show the tax maps, isn't there a distinction between one that's surveyed and one that's not? One says ACC and one just says AC, where it shows the acreage. There's a distinction between those two markings on the tax maps. It means, one means it's surveyed, one means it isn't. So that one way to do it would be to just go to the closest one you can find that's surveyed with 100-foot tape or 200 or 300-foot tape, and have her stand on one end of it and add up. And you may have to go down to the town office and get a few copies of deeds, but you should be able to figure it out, short of having to hire a surveyor.
So maybe it sounds like we should just
But if you were
build on
gonna,
our
if you're
path.
gonna build something, you sure don't wanna find out the worst case scenario he just described after you pour the concrete, and find out that the person next door, something happens, they get transferred out of town, they sell the property, it changes hands, and the next person wants to put his fence and lean-to and whatever on the same spot on the line, and you both find out that line's a different hypothetical floating target. Just, I mean, I saw your article in the paper, it seemed like a pretty neat project, think small. And it sure seems like you want to be in the right spot. Irrelevant of the waiver for the bicycle shed.
Mhm.
And prevention is always much better. Because Tim is right, you could end up with another neighbor that says,
Can I just, oh, sorry.
you know, I want that gone, and it has to be gone.
I'm just curious if, so unrelated to our application or anything like that, if we were to leave the existing garage where it is and someone was to move in, you know, years from now and found something to be out of alignment with the property line, or like we or anybody, I mean, if someone comes in later on and discovers that something has been built over the property line, is it then incumbent on the buyer, even if they didn't build that structure, to tear that down?
That's
Not
where title
necessarily.
insurance comes in, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Where do
that's
their
a-
lawyers go?
So I don't want to get into it. I was just curious, like, if there was a cut and dried answer, like yes, no.
No. Yeah, I mean, there's title insurance, but there's also like adverse possession. If you've been there for 15 years, you
Yeah.
can maybe claim ownership of it. I mean, it's a complicated question.
Okay.
I don't think it's an easy answer.
So
I'm
technically,
not-
technically they're here, they already have a permit to build something, and
Right.
that didn't even come over the bow here. They're just asking now for permission
change it.
to encroach into the setback, whatever they think, 5 feet, maybe not 5 feet.
Well, it sounds like we'd have to
By a
determine
foot.
our property lines before we determine that.
Well, it would seem prudent to do that.
So,
Well, then would we continue this, or are we
Would you-
voting on this?
Would you like us to continue this for 1 month until you determine exactly
With the encroachment?
what the encroachment would be?
can it be and or and if? If we don't,
Or demolish it, at least, maybe if you
No, we're okay.
demolished it, then that one.
because we're not going to pay for a surveyor, we're already over budget. And if we measure, we're not going to be sure it's the right post
Mhm.
on the other side, so we wouldn't be able to accurately determine it. So we'll just stay within our pad.
Tim, I know there is at least one marker in the neighborhood, so I think I put the marker.
Maybe we could reapply if we
Well,
get the
if you're
junction
only
to
19,
establish exactly what we own.
You can't be that far from the end of the street. That's gotta be a pretty fixed point down at the corner down there by, the house with the... I mean,
This,
some-
I mean, from a board perspective, right now we could vote to grant the waiver to the property line, clearly, and that there's an assumption that the original structure is going to conform. I think there was an assumption that it was conforming.
We would have had it otherwise.
Sorry?
I would have sent the entire application to you otherwise.
And we could vote it up or down, just to allow it or not allow it.
What's that?
No, well,
Just vote on it as it
So
is.
you're saying we could vote to allow them to build to the property line?
that,
Or not.
I mean, that's all we
the,
can
the,
ever allow.
we wouldn't allow them to go beyond that, but their application
But they
today,
don't-
they've come to us today to I think, to put up a shed addition
A bicycle shed in the setback.
in the setback. And the setback is 5 foot, so they've come...
We don't know that.
Well,
Well, we know the setback is 5 feet, we just don't know where they're measuring theirs from.
Yeah.
Typically, we don't know where anybody's
Yeah.
measuring theirs from. We put the onus of determining that onto them, and if they screw it up, then they're gonna have to see her, or Ted, or
Or Jim.
the guy that Jim, the guy that just left, or whatever there, you know, Jimmy Monte, so. Right? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, we're not
unless it's a
guaranteeing.
big thing, we tell them, ask someone, we may make this survey contingent on it, but it doesn't sound like we're gonna make them do a survey.
That would be the same size as the garage.
right? I mean, there's no precedent to
But they won't argue.
cause them to do that.
Any further comments, Stu? Further comments? Looking for a motion to in the approved application 2011 013. A waiver to dimensional standards to build a bike shed into the 5-foot setback.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
So moved, second. Those in favour? Those against? Those abstaining?
Did everyone vote?
Did everybody vote?
Wasn't
No, he wasn't appointed. Tim, so can I just get the vote against? We've got one in favour? It's one against? One.
Against.
1, 2,
Abstain.
2,
I voted against.
3, 4.
I'm against it.
One,
One.
So you don't
1,
vote
4, 2.
against either one to approve or not, right?
Yeah.
No, 1, 4, 2.
Yeah, yeah,
We're
yeah.
sorry, but the board's
Okay.
turned it down.
Thanks.
Thanks for considering it.
Thank
you
you.
for your consideration.
Mostly because it's not noted where anything is.
No, it's been very helpful for us too.
Yeah.
We're new at all of this, actually. This is our first hearing.
Application 2011 016. Gina.
Something like that. But you know, the only reason is because nobody's not seeing.
What's that?
No,
That was 1, 4.
See who else voted against?
I voted against,
Kimberly.
yes.
I voted for. Oh, you did? I don't think you can. Is that how you counted it?
Thanks.
Thanks. Just let's see mine.
Who's chairing?
Gina's chair.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay, you just want to tell us about your project?
I was approached maybe a month ago by a gentleman named Michael Park. My name is Jonathan Williams, by the way, who operates a massage therapy school in Burlington. For logistical reasons, he wanted to move that school to Brattleboro. He contacted me. We signed a lease. We went and talked to Brian, and Brian said schools are permitted conditionally in all areas of Brattleboro, so I'm here to get your approval to allow Mr. Park to operate that school in my building.
How many students would it?
He said it would not exceed, the most would be 10 students at any one time.
Okay. And not housed there, it's just the classroom?
That's correct.
And it said here is mostly the attending students from Asia typically do not have children. Is that students, I mean, are they students coming from somewhere else or?
He has told me that students come in from Korea, China, and Japan.
Okay. All right, and yeah, I mean, just because that's where he advertises, I'm just like curious about the business, I guess.
He does not have a great grasp of the English language. He is a Japanese businessman. I get the feeling that he has a strong connection to Japan.
Okay.
He's also been in business for many years. Beyond that, I couldn't tell you a whole lot.
And it's a school of massage therapy?
Yes, that's correct.
How many teachers would be there?
I believe there's the director who I met and 2 others. He said the typical hours of operation are 9 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Okay.
That's 5 days a week? Or
Yes, 5 days a week.
And this is an existing space you're not adding or?
That's correct. That's
Okay.
correct.
And is there, what's the parking situation?
We have 140 spaces in the plaza, so there's plenty of parking. There's too much parking, really.
I don't know if we use it. Lighting or signs of any nature?
Across the face of the building is a place about 2 feet wide that has traditionally, since the building's been built, that's where signage goes. I think he will submit a separate sign permit to you. The length of the building is such that by the calculation, we're allowed quite a bit of signage, and he's just going to be looking for, I think, 8 square feet or something pretty small.
Okay.
Looking at this right here, it looks like it's an internal suite. So where would he have a sign? Where would he need it?
Right here.
Right,
This is,
oh, right
this is
here.
Route 9 right here.
Oh, I see. Thank you. Okay, I get it.
The board have any other questions about this project? Those bathrooms in the corner?
There is 1 bathroom within that suite.
What was the use of this building before, or this space?
Vermont Vinyl had it as their office.
Okay. So it's kind of a set number. There's not going to be a lot of necessarily in and out. Is it? They come.
I would say no, right.
Okay.
Come in the morning, maybe they break for lunch,
Yeah.
and
All right. Does the public have any comments or questions about this application?
come on, Tim, you got one.
And can you just, the character of the area affected is a pretty commercial area. What are your immediate neighbors? Look like?
To the left is First Choice Communications, and to the right is Central Appliance.
First Choice, is that like a?
They
cell
sell
phone store?
telephone systems.
Oh, okay. So both commercial. All right, I think board doesn't have anything else. Propose a motion to approve application 2011-16. Oh, yeah, I'll appoint both Joe and Timberly to vote on this one. I just spoon moved, yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? I'll abstain, so that's 6-0-1.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
That's the way they're supposed to go.
I have a quick question. Is that an addition or use for PUD? We added to the PUD?
That was one of those PUDs that's a non-PUD, right?
It's real, I think. Okay, yeah.
With no rules. It seemed like the last time it came.
Call
Right.
application 2011-019, which, oh no, first of all, 211-018, Sandstone Lumber Company, I believe is being continued, correct?
They've asked to be continued
To the next meeting, the May meeting. So, looking for a motion to continue application 2011-018 to May meeting, May the
He's 16.
May the 16th?
Yeah.
Second?
Yep.
All those in favour?
Aye.
I only appointed somebody, but it's produced 6001, something. Whatever we need to do. Thank you. Call application 2011-019, Art Greenbaum for Howard Realty, and this is site plan concept review. Please come up and tell us about the project.
table.
Do we have, Brian, do we have an easel?
It's right in his hand. This one.
Yeah, it's certainly very,
Yeah.
ornate style. This one.
I was like, you guys approve that?
It is an arbitrary thing, we have to make aesthetic.
Right.
Yeah.
Put it
together.
I know.
I mean, we don't like that. So we spend another $100
Yeah.
to make it pretty.
It's still sticking in the same spot. TV to look at.
Yeah, we got something so the camera can see it,
Right.
as well as us.
Yeah, exactly. You're right back here.
No, this is not
It's just concept review.
Yeah. Can we pretty much get everybody to see it?
Yep.
Okay. Good evening, my name's Art Greenbaum from GPI Construction. Greg Howard from Howard Real Estate LLC. Yes. Okay, good evening. What we're proposing right now, it was in your packet, but I'll just read through it so that the camera can have it. What we're proposing right now is an overview of the Howard property on Putney Road. The Howards, in conjunction with GPI Construction and NBF Architects of Rutland, are asking for project concept approval subject to meeting all full documentation and engineering requirements of the DRB. This approval will allow us to establish construction costs, faithfully develop a marketing plan, negotiate with anchor tenants, secure loan commitments, and install the signage to the public offering space for lease. What we're proposing, the highlights of it, it'll be 8,000 square foot footprint of professional, retail, and office space, 3 stories, 24,000 square feet total. We maximize the prime Putney Road land. We already have infrastructure, water, sewer to do the job. We'll have code compliant construction, including elevators and fire suppression throughout the building. Water, sewer, and electrical, fire protection infrastructure is already there. Obviously, they'll meet the state energy codes. Fire suppression and fire alarms, ADA compliant. Exterior finishes will be maintenance-free, consistent with 3 texture patterns. Parking for approximately 79 vehicles. The town requires us to have 76. We're looking into trying to recycle part of the building into this light industrial structure. That's going to be subject to code reviews because it's a 1980 steel structure, which the codes have changed as far as weight loads and so on. Storm water will become a containment system for the Agency of Natural Resources, which is very typical up in Putney Road, like Woodman's Athletics has large infiltrators. We'll have ease of access to Putney Road via the proposed roundabout upgrade. I know we've talked to 2 neighbors. There's always concerns about where signage is going to go and stuff, and we're not here to discuss that because we really don't even know what the state's going to allow up there, I guess, for signage. Maybe you folks do, but we haven't heard. We're well within the 90% density coverage for the lot. So going to the other side, which is all in your packet, this is the Howard Print Building for 1-story, 1980 Butler Building. This is the veterinary clinic right next to it. So the Howard Print Building will be in this area here. Way back in this back corner is Chris Parrow's building for the Redemption Place. This is what we see as the building. 3-story building, covered porches on 2 sides, which would be the south and the east side. This is your elevator and stairwells, plus there's other stairwells on the west side, because you have to have 2 means of egress getting off. So the stairwells are fully enclosed. We actually see, 3 different types of composition for siding. Upper gables will be, 1 type, maybe a shingle, horizontal clapboard, standing seam roof for your canopies, strip shingle roof up here. Obviously, a building of this size, we're trying to get it so that the maintenance of the exterior is as much maintenance-free as possible. Whether it's hardy plank or vinyl siding, we're not sure at this point. It's still up to the architect on looking at the costs involved. This is what the property looks at right now. There's Howard Print. This is a future roundabout, so we still come in through the same road. This goes back, here's the veterinary clinic before the addition was. This is where the new addition of building is. Chris's building is back in here. Howard Print is still come in here. There's their parking right now that they have. So what we're proposing is the entrance to Howard Print, which is right here, still stays the same. There's roughly 5 parking spots in front. There's a sidewalk. This square right here represents this roughly 6,400 square foot structure. The orange around it is the added structure. The width stays the same. This is canopy. This is canopy. That's canopy. Here's the stair tower where the elevator is, and the building that would be approximately 8,000 square feet goes like this. There's your building. So you have your parking. This back corner here will be the light industrial. That's where the actual noise of the machines from Howard Print, because he's got the machines that cut and bundle and stuff like that. The shop area would be 3,200 square feet. This would be in the back far east corner of the property. The apartments are up over here. Everything in the green hash is basically your pervious surface, your grassy surface. Everything within here is the parking that we would have. The states, the best that I came up with working with Rod and Brian was that, we got a copy of the proposed roundabout, and it looks like right about here is where the state's work is going to stop, because there's access into the Sunoco gas station. And I'm sure Brian could update the board if you folks have any questions on that, but the state and the roundabout, we don't really know that much about because it's out of our control. So that's what we visualized for it. And Greg and I will entertain any questions at all.
Can I, just before we break into questions, just remind everybody that this is a preliminary site plan concept review discussion meeting, the purposes of which are to explore possible concepts for developing a site plan, which is why you're here, prior to going to the detailed stage, and that it's an informal exchange of ideas, and that nothing here, none of the suggestions we may make are binding in any sense, and there's also no implication that if you did implement any suggestions that we made, that they would be approved when you came back. So it's an open forum discussion for people to pass ideas backwards and forwards and try and determine and assist you in getting something that will work to your best interest and will attain approval. But there's no approval is not a given from these discussions.
Right. Now, excuse me, but my understanding of what you just said is what I presented to Greg and Donna, because before you can even start to market something, people will say to you, gee, we'd really like to get the second floor and build whatever we're going to put in there. Have you gotten town approval?
Yeah.
And in this particular cases, we can say that we've got approval to advertise a building that looks like this. We've got approval to talk about it, but we have to go through all the engineered documents and normal give and take. We haven't gone in front of the police department or the fire department because the plans aren't developed that much, and we know what they're going to look for, and the architects and the engineers are going to have to make sure that the turning radiuses for the fire truck is wide. I've had experience with other projects where the fire department will come in and say, we still need 6 extra feet to get 2 cars by, and we understand that is part of the process, Tim, that will go on in the future.
Yeah, I think my point is that there's no approvals tonight and there are no denials tonight either.
Okay.
It's an informal discussion. I got to move on. I got a few questions. So,
What is the
sorry.
It's not preliminary site plan.
No, we're concept review. Are you? I guess a few questions are: you're going to demolish completely the existing building?
The existing building would come down totally.
Totally. Okay.
Yep.
So there's no. You're not adding to that. You're just.
No, we're not adding to that at all. That building was built in 1980 as a metal Butler building. The foundations are going to be looked at to see if they have the bearing capacity for a 3-story structure on it. That'll be based on soils, borings, and things like that. We hope that the infrastructure that's there, which is the water, sewer, the electrical, and possibly the foundation and a little bit of those existing slabs that are there, will have salvage value. We'll be able to incorporate them into our first floor.
The business that's conducted in that building right now is proposed. That use is proposed to move to the new structure at the back.
Part of it.
Part of that use.
Yes.
So you will have the printing. Let's just call it for the moment a printing business. You'll have a printing business, part of which will operate out of a new building, which is in the rear of your current parking lot.
Correct.
And part of it will operate out of commercial offices in the front.
Correct.
Okay.
The surrounding properties, those are all commercial, industrial, what are they?
There's the veterinary clinic, and then there's, Chris, your what? Your redemption center, or what? Gone Golfing?
Commercial.
Yeah, Fastenal. Yep. So all the buildings that surround are all commercial in nature. Yep.
As an observation about access, I don't believe, and Brian can chime in here, I don't believe that the state's potential change with the rotary and roundabout there would impact your site. In so much as there's any aspect of that development that encroaches onto your site. I think your site, maybe the very front portion, but our knowledge of what's happening there dictated a little while ago the development on the other side of the road, which did get got built further back with a greater setback from Putney Road to accommodate that. And I believe that still you're much, much further back. The gas station may be impacted, but not you.
Right.
Maybe. But again, we'll have to check with the state. The state was forthcoming, I believe, what was the other application we had before? The veterinary. The state was forthcoming in terms of, where they expected their rights of way and their works to be undertaken.
I think that is on
It's marked on there?
Yeah.
Okay.
If I read Brian correctly, what we tried to do was take this, and you guys have black and whites in your package, but this was the proposed roundabout location. So in the 8.5 by 11, we took, to the best that we could, tried to scale it in to show you on the larger drawing where they're going to be coming. And this here, I believe, represented a sidewalk. There's your travel lane, and then it stops right about here. And it appears to me is that the southern entrance or exit of the Sunoco is going to be right there and dive into the property, and that's where their canopy is. And whether or not they're going to allow diving in and going out this way, I don't know.
I think it's out only.
Out only? Yep. So that means for the Sunoco folks, they're going to go quarter way around the roundabout and then turn in and go in and then just dive out going northbound.
I believe so.
Right, because actually that's part of the island right up and through here, I believe.
The building at the rear is single story or multiple stories?
Single.
Single story.
What's the parking requirement for the building?
Based on retail, professional space, and apartments, 76 we believe are required by the town, and we're showing 79.
How many apartments are you thinking?
9. So I know there's a ratio, but I believe it's every 3 apartments you have to have an extra space, or every, right? Yeah.
So on the front building, it's commercial on the first floor and apartments above, or is it commercial above and apartments on the third floor?
Apartments on, right now, based on our concept, it would be commercial, retail, on the first floor, very similar to like what you see at North Mountain Plaza or, you know, Gone Golfing and Fastenal. Second floor, we're hoping for professional folks, doctors, dentists, physical therapists, and then the upper floor would be apartments.
Okay.
How many units do you?
9.
What's the terrain in the rear? Is that a steep slope?
Yeah, if you, let's see, I know there was a topo here, but basically, right about at the property line is the toe of the slope, and it goes right up to the apartments up on the upper level. I believe it's Green Mountain Apartments behind it. Yeah, so that's where your apartments are. So, you know, this is all heavily wooded. The trees coming down the slope is all right in here.
Yeah. There is, just to talk about that terrain, the rear, I drove around that parking lot a few days ago. The rear of that is in the, I don't know, the north side, it's quite